This is Battle of Hoth, aka Memoir 44 Empire Strikes Back Edition. Cause this game is so similar to Memoir 44, a game released over 20 years ago by the same publisher. This is the icy showdown between the rebels and Empire, as you will take a side to generally try to eliminate as many enemy units before they eliminate yours. You'll handle snowtroopers to snow speeders to Imperial droids to even the lumbering AT-ATs. Gotta love those. I've played Memoir 44 a couple times a couple years back, and now with this game being Star Wars, of course I had to buy a copy for myself and check it out. We've played 3 scenarios of our choosing to use every single unit to get a pretty good picture of this game before making this review. There's an included campaign and 2 variants to that campaign we'll touch on briefly, but we definitely didn't complete these. And this is now shorter than Memoir 44 at an estimated 30 minutes, as opposed to Memoir 44's 45 to 60 minutes. So now this is the most accessible way to play Memoir 44. But is that a good thing within this system here? Well, first, a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by Conquest for the Capital. Have you ever wanted to jump into a fantasy area control with simultaneous movement? This is for you and 3 buddies in a fast-paced tooth and nail fight over the center to kill those humans and each other in climactic battles. You can stack big armies of orcs, who move in 2 different phases in a round, dwarves, who can set up their towers on the map, elves, who can start teleporting from tiles not in battles into battles, or my favorite, the undead, who have their army size ramp upwards every time they successfully attack. And each faction has their own faction upgrade deck to modify them. But remember, first to conquer the capital for themselves wins. You can even modify the map after your first game with terrain. So that's Conquest for the Capital. Check out the game found in the description below. Now back to the video. How to play! Goal is to hit a certain number of medals before your opponent, depending on the scenario. In this scenario, you'll need 4 medals, then you immediately win. To get a medal, you usually must eliminate a unit, that is depleting all minis in its tile. You kill units by getting hits on the dice when you attack them with another unit. On your turn, all you do is play a card from your hand. It'll usually tell you what units you can order, which are the ones you'll be using for this turn. Then move each unit you've ordered up to their movement. Generally, it'll be 1 space, but you can move up to 2 spaces with infantry and forfeit your attack. You can't move through friendly units ever. After you move, each order unit also gets to attack, which means you point to an enemy nearby and roll dice equal to how far they are away. Closer means more dice. You want to get a symbol that matches the target, like an infantry if you're attacking infantry, or a vehicle if you're attacking a snowspeeder. This blast means that anything will take 1 damage. This is a miss. Just take off a number of units equal to how many hits you got. If you emptied a unit, it's now forever gone and you get a medal. If you roll any retreats, that target must also move back 1 space equal to how many retreats you rolled. That's basically your turn. After everything you ordered attacked, you draw a card from your deck, then pass to your opponent. The moment you hit a certain number of medals, you immediately win. Pros! Battle of Hoth is a nice looking and feeling game all around. Days of Wonder, you did it again. The miniatures are all fantastic quality and feel great to hold. They look great on the board and are super easy to move around and see. I mean, you're going to be constantly chucking the infantry figures as they die, so they better be durable, right? They are. But probably one of the biggest pros here is how visually clear everything is. And yay for included card holders that even curve inwards. The symbols and general graphic design in the game are all super clear, which makes the whole loop of draw a new card, see what it does, make strategy, much easier. Then the player aids are awesome. It explains everything for each unit without any words, and it's double-sided so you can keep checking yours and your opponent's. The terrain sheet is much appreciated too, although it would have been nice to have another one for the more complex scenarios. And if you're looking at a war game that is 30 minutes on the box, you're probably looking at speed of play, and man oh man, is Battle of Hoth so quick to start. Just give each player their miniature pack, pick a scenario, and sometimes you would even use all 3 types of minis. Choose a leader to shuffle those cards in if you want, draw a couple cards from the deck, and you're ready to go. Also, huge shout out to how well the game packs up with the insert 0 plastic bags needed. But how's the gameplay, right? Well, this game feels a decent amount like Star Wars with the asymmetry, and it's more asymmetric here than in Memoir 44. The rebels always go first, but have 1 less trip for the infantry, but have access to the extremely fast snow speeders that move 3 spaces and roll a bunch of dice when right next to you. Then since the rebels are generally playing defense, they have access to the artillery that hit like utter bricks and don't provide medals if they die. In some scenarios, the rebels will even have to defend these shield generators and ion cannons that can immediately lose them the scenario if they die. The Imperials are generally in a less favorable position from the start, but are blessed with the taxpayer efforts of having more quantity in their infantry And they have the very cheeky AT-ATs that are really hard to kill as they require a special set of rolls. They also have these Imperial droids that throw a wrench at the whole medal system because they move and attack fairly normally, but when they die, they don't give medals. As for cards, each side will share the same core of 3 copies of each of the column activations, like Raid and Assault, then 1 direct from HQ. Then each side has their own special column activator. The rest of the cards are also mirrored, where say Trooper Assault will be slightly varied with the Rebels getting to roll an additional die when they play it. Makes sense because they already have 1 less health. In fact, the rest of the Rebel cards will tend to favor attacking, while the rest of the Imperial cards will favor movement. The next gameplay pro is the terrain. It's in this really sweet spot between being simple and being engaging to play with. So the main terrain we've been playing with so far are the ridges, which don't do too much. All they do is that when you stand on them, you get a bonus defense. Then they can block line of sight because you can't shoot through them. Then there's these crevices that nothing can go through except for snow speeders. And then we have these little ice crystal blocks that literally nothing can see through or go through. When you take the really simple line of sight rules with center of hex to center of hex and how lots of terrain gives you defensive bonuses by standing in them, it's really quick to see just how a couple terrain will change each map's approach and give you more to chew on every turn. Like, maybe I want to take this ridge on the left side to help secure my position. Or do I want to take this opportunity to fly over the crevice and shoot first? Also, nice idea that the AT-ATs can never go on the ridge, giving them a nice movement disadvantage because their attack value is really strong, but more on this later. Then for combat, we really liked how they handled the retreat result on dice. See, it pushes back the enemy you're firing against 1 space towards the edge of their board. So for firing against this, it goes away from our unit like that. This actually means that you could push back an enemy beyond the line of sight of another unit, so it makes sequencing of fire matter. Also, if a unit has to retreat but cannot, like say they're at the edge of the board or have units behind them, they lose health instead. This was a cool way to streamline the punishment of units being pushed to the edge of the board and lets you be on the lookout offensively to see where your opponent has their back to the wall. Pushing the chance of hitting an infantry from 2 out of 6 to 3 out of 6 is pretty good. This also later gives you the decision, oh, well, these retreated units, do I push them up and kind of push my luck because they've hit the same amount, but they only have 2 health left, or do I keep them where they are, or do I retreat them out of safety? Lastly, the retreat mechanic is quite thematic as units are running away after getting shot. Run away, right? They're scared. They're getting shot at and they're scared. Replayability here is also good. Like you got 17 terrain tiles that are all double-sided, with something like buildings helping vehicle defense and trenches helping infantry defense for those World War I vibes. And you get 17 pre-made scenarios where they'll slowly roll out the additions in rules. And so, wow, you could get a pretty novel experience 34 times by playing each side once. Some later scenarios will introduce special force units, which is mostly just buffing certain types of infantry, like giving them a heavy machine gun or giving them the assault label. These are extra cool units that when they wipe out an adjacent enemy unit or force them to retreat, they can advance into that space and fire again. If you want even more, you can go to the website to play fan-made scenarios. Not sure how popular this will be because the game is so new, but awesome that they're trying to build a community from the get-go. Each faction also has 3 included leaders, of which have 3 cards each, ranging from Princess Leia to Han Solo, and then to General Veers, and of course, Darth Vader. So now you can add Princess Leia healing abilities to your deck, or Admiral Piet can do an orbital strike just cuz. But what really impressed me were the 2 alternate campaigns where each side will take a separate campaign booklet. We haven't tried this, but it adds so much cool stuff, I just couldn't help but read up on them. So here we go. There's a new mechanic of using support cards, where you can get rewarded support cards throughout the campaign. This can be played in addition to a command card, but then removed from the game forever. This is definitely giving more decision making with the once per campaigns. You'll get these through secret secondary missions that you keep secret from your opponent until you do them. Like every time you kill the AT-AT, you draw a support card. It's pretty cool how these booklets will let you do the main campaign missions in new order, as depending on which side wins a fight, you'll go to certain next missions. And you'll play 4 missions to see if the Rebels or the Empire wins. And you'll get to add leader cards depending on how you do, meaning that you could have 2 leaders at the same time in your deck. The last pro is that this game runs really true to time. It's pretty impressive that a game with 3 levels of the battlefield, a hand of cards, and health for units is able to end so quickly. This is mostly because of A, the medal giving system, and B, how simple the combat and really everything is. And people can start getting medals as units die as early as turn 3, as that's likely the 2nd or 3rd time you've hit a unit on the board, but of course more on timing in cons. First gameplay con is how this game does actions, that is, the card system, and it's not that bad per se. It's not broken, but it feels pretty antiquated by 2025 standards. When we look at how many cards activate a certain column, the idea of gameplay is to push forward with troops while also considering that you may want to end their turn in certain columns to eventually launch a devastating assault. Especially gets cheeky when you see both players lining up troops on the spaces that straddle two columns. It's not surprising to see an assault activate 4 to 5 units to try to end the game in a giant push. When you set this off, it's a cool payoff of lots of action economy. However, this sometimes doesn't happen because the game might end before you set that up with the matches being so short, which is due to the fact that this board is actually smaller than Memoir 44's. Memoir 44's is 13 by 9, and this one is 10 by 7. They definitely did this to make the game much shorter. As we said in pros, it's pretty likely that units start dying as early as turns 2 and 3. Having less rounds in a game where you're only drawing one card from your deck every turn means that you just won't have enough time to properly go through your deck. Your deck is 16 cards, and so it's entirely likely you just might not draw the cards you're trying to set up for. Memoir 44 gave more of a respite before units were in range to actually fight each other, so you had more time to manage your hand and field and deck. Then smack on the 3 optional Star Wars leaders and the RNG gets even worse, because the leader cards are all over the place in power. Like if I happen to activate an AT-AT twice and blow up 2 units, that's insane value, that's 2 points. Compare that to healing just 1 unit and attacking with it. I mean, this can be good if you have a very specific situation where there's only 1 HP remaining for infantry and they can move to be in range to attack something. But guess what? You also might not even draw your leader cards in a game. Drawing and playing cards in this simple system can sometimes just evolve into this feeling of crossing your fingers and top decking cards. Like, oh, if I happen to just luck into a really good one, duh, I play it. The way to fix this is to require cards to have a delay in playing, or have them take some cost, or make them even have some alternate use besides just playing it for the main ability. I mean, it's almost like the game is trying to be clunky with randomness because you don't even get to mulligan your opening hand. And if you think about it, the Memoir 44 system's outcomes are reliant on 2 major sources of randomness. Not only is what you can play entirely restricted by your card draw, but also the outcome of what really matters during a round, that is how many hits you roll, is all from dice. And you don't really get rerolls there either. Other popular games that have lots of randomness from 2 sources tend to give you more agency around at least one of these sources of randomness. Like in Undaunted, where you're building the deck you're drawing from, then constantly drawing through it. Or Star Wars Rebellion, where you have a starting hand of missions and then draw to add cards to that. So you always have your starting missions no matter what, and then you can choose to contest other people's missions, and you don't even have to launch full-on attacks to win. Or War of the Ring, where the action dice can be manipulated. Then there's the combat cards to influence combats, and then things boil down to a roll across a long game, like 4 hours, so crazy results tend to smooth out. Okay, now let's talk about some cards that feel kind of wonky. Like the cards that are extremely weak if you just don't have vehicles. Hope you don't draw this when your vehicles die, or if you play a scenario with no vehicles. Or how recon is usually too low in strength to play. It helps thin your deck, which is good, but in this game you don't have that many turns. You want to be killing things because that gives you points and prevents your opponent from getting points. So you want to play your strong cards ASAP. Also, the scenarios deeper in the campaign will give you more command cards, so you can just hold recon in your hand and never play it because you already have what you want. Basically, the card system is so basic and missing some type of nuance in how to play cards. There's no such thing as card advantage, which means that, yeah, just have a strong card in fast game. Play that now. Assault is potentially 2 or 3 times the strength of Raid, and a card like Trooper Assault in certain maps gives so much advantage, you might as well win the game if you roll decently off of it. As we get to the end of the gameplay cons, I want to bring up the Snowspeeder and the AT-AT. Yes, they are Star Wars cool, but some of their mechanical fit in this game is a little clunky. So the Snowspeeder can move up to 3 spaces. Okay, well, 1, 2, 3. That's half the board. In Memoir 44, the tank having 3 movement didn't take it as far because the board was bigger. The AT-AT is on the complete opposite end, where it's insanely clunky because it can't go on ridges, which is a cool idea as we mentioned, but it hurts so hard when you start seeing multiple ridges on the complicated maps. So then you kind of feel like it's not worth moving at all, so you ignore it. But surely there could have been a way for it to eventually go on ridges or blow them up slowly so you have a reason to activate the AT-AT and not just completely let it sit there. So then to boost the AT-AT stats, they decided to make it kind of unkillable-ish in a weird way. So to kill it, you have to first roll a vehicle or a blast symbol. Then for each hit, you roll again to hope you get a blast. So there's a 2 out of 6 chance. Then each of those dice have a 1 out of 6 chance to hit, meaning that when attacking it, each die has about a 5.5% chance of killing it. So sure, it's low, this seems fine in theory, but kind of odd in execution, because it can seem unkillable in gameplay as it survives a bunch of initial hits where all those dice seemed like they hit, but then actually on the second roll were nothing. I mean, this isn't a Death Star. This should be killable if you fire a lot at it, right? Instead, why not have the AT-AT just have 2 to 3 HP? Then when it's on its last health, then someone has to roll a blast to kill it, leading to a much more climactic buildup that's a 1 out of 6 chance. The last con is that the leader cards in this game really have no cohesion to each other or thematically. Darth Vader, what about this is Darth Vader? I can use force powers to activate 2 units and retreats are considered blasts. Okay. What does this have to do with the force? Imperial Discipline, all my units can go. They just order 1 die less. Okay, how is this any less Imperial Discipline than going under Maximilian Veers, who doesn't even have a maximum firepower card? Why not just have the leaders have a focus on a certain type of unit? Like some leaders focus on vehicles, some on infantry, and some on miscellaneous units. I kid you not, I could switch any named leader onto any of their cards because there's no real theme or mechanical through line with them. Scoring! Now it's time for a recommender score for the Battle of Hoth, where we try to critically evaluate the aforementioned pros and cons, with the caveat of whether or not this is even a good idea in the first place. This is a 30-minute 1v1 tactical fight where you activate units from sections by playing 1 card from hand, and you just generally try to kill as many things as possible. And this is going to get a 7 out of 10. It is good. No matter how much I blast the gameplay and the cons for being fairly antiquated, at the end of the day, this game is pretty much still S-tier accessibility. If you just want to fight with the cool Star Wars universe and want a game in 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes with the longer scenarios, then yeah, this is it. It is a family game after all from Days of Wonder. No assembly required, learn it super quick, pop in, get it off the shelf, play it, put it back on the shelf. Yeah, the rules are teachable in less than 5 minutes, the replayability is good, and there's a lot of stories to be had with the AT-ATs blowing up rows of rebel troopers, or how snowspeeders come in from the right flank to annihilate all the retreating snow troopers. Of course, by having the game rely on so much heavy input randomness, that is your command deck, and rely even more on output randomness, that is rolling dice, yeah, it's easy to see where the quick and harsh criticisms come from, like, it's too simple, or worse, it's just a mindless dice chucker. Yet there definitely is strategy around when to retreat units, as you're often moving many units a turn, and the terrain and unique scenario objectives can challenge you. The dark side of so much streamlining is that the game can feel a tad dry besides the existence of AT-ATs and snowspeeders, of which are a little wonky too. And then also units can't do cool actions like going prone or making terrain like other tactical war games. And then the short time length with the smaller board makes the numbers not align as well as in Memoir 44. Like, if you think about the new inclusion of the optional leaders, well, they could have done more for the game, like interact with your hand more. Say Princess Leia can always make you draw 2 cards and then pick 1. Or this game could have gone the Star Wars Battlefront route and have your leader actually spawn on the board to do things to inspire your troops or, fight, and that would work independently of your command cards. But no, the leaders are just more command cards. Instead, they focus on giving you 2 alternate campaigns, which means you can have a fairly satisfying Star Wars adventure of 4 missions under 2.5 hours, with upgrades, flavor text, and new support card mechanics. So if you're okay with the base Memoir 44 rules and just want a little bit extra, this might just be enough for you to buy this game. And given the lightness of the mechanics, I could see 3 to 4 players really being the go-to way to play, as you can bicker with your teammate, chuckle at making mistakes, and as a group, tease each other for dice rolls. Memoir 44 Empire Strikes Back would have been an 8 out of 10 if released long ago when standards for randomness weren't as high. Now, over 2 decades after Memoir 44, quite little has been changed of the core here, and some changes to favor shortness of play weren't really cleanly done, but this still may bring pure Star Wars geekdom ecstasy to those Memoir 44 fans, and then this will also disappoint those who outgrew Memoir 44 but would perk up at seeing AT-ATs here. Yeah, without the Star Wars theme on such an iconic setting, much less people will be talking about this, and it's a very safe move for Days of Wonder. Basically, if you need Star Wars in 30 minutes, it's good, dumb fun. It's not the most elegant, but whatever. But if you're really into Star Wars and want a deeper 1v1 game, Star Wars Rebellion is the way to go, for sure. You don't even need the expansion. Or, if you want something a little bit shorter, well, Star Wars deck building game, or Star Wars Unlimited. Oh, lastly, it's funny thematically that this game is kind of funky in premise because you're fighting like the Rebel Empire on equal ground, but really the Empire should just have way more troops. My personal score for Battle of Hoth is going to be a 6 out of 10. I have an above average time with it. I really thought my score would be a 7 or higher because, well, it's Star Wars. I like these Star Wars, and with all the cool minis, if there could be a fraction of the enjoyment of handling troops in Star Wars Rebellion, then yeah, for 30 minutes, this would be awesome to play regularly. Okay, yes, this is based on the Memoir 44 system, which I was kind of met on. I would probably give it a 5 out of 10 based on my experience playing it many years ago, but surely they improved the formula a lot here, right? And when playing this, I was just mostly whelmed. The scenarios give a lot of replayability, the AT-ATs are clunky but still cool to see on the board, but at the end of the day, the mechanics are pretty frustrating in how they handle randomness, and your hand feels so stagnant by today's standards. Like, where's the part where I can chain cards together, or go through my entire deck again while trashing cards? But then the game just isn't that long, so I don't have a lot of time to be bored or frustrated with this. So I always end up feeling like, oh yeah, that was pretty cool with the scenario premise, we did the scenario, it made sense. I just wish there were more mechanics though, and more different types of units, and probably better randomness handling. I probably should have just played something else. And sometimes Battle of Hoth feels dry, like with the aforementioned leaders, or when you just have your generic army men activating twice and pushing in. This just needs to have a leader on the board. Come on, Star Wars Battlefront, that could be implemented here. Put in Jedi, a Sith, that'd be cool. I keep contrasting Battle of Hoth with Company of Heroes, which I played on TTS with people in our Discord. And this was way more complicated, but also felt way more mechanically polished and thematically immersive. So if I'm gonna take the time to really get into a tactical war game, I wouldn't play scenarios from Battle of Hoth, I would just play one game of Company of Heroes. But I know that type of huge game with all that packaging isn't for most people, and its setup is probably longer than a Battle of Hoth single session. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't suggest to play this, but if someone wanted to play this with me, I probably would never say no because it's so short, it's cool to be in Star Wars. It's just that I'm not expecting to be amazed by anything while playing. Nothing really that unpleasant. It really should be a 5 out of 10, but me liking Star Wars, so 6 out of 10. So that was Battle of Hoth. Got to cover it. Let me know what other Days of Wonders games we should cover, because yeah, I feel like we should cover Heat, maybe 5 Tribes. There's a lot of Days of Wonder. I think that would be a cool little fit for our review style. Anyways, thank you to our patrons for making videos like this possible over here. Thank you guys so much. And yeah, that's it for Battle of Hoth. Let me know what you think. If there's any scenarios that really blew you away, or if there's alternatives to this. I know Company of Heroes is the cool one I've tried on TTS. That was pretty cool. And yeah, thank you to our Mad Lads cardboard. Okay, remember to like, comment, subscribe. Bye-bye.